Alright guys, so as you can see, we are here for my highlights of the AOR PS4 Tier 1 Round 2 here for the Chinese Grand Prix, and it's a track I raced in esports, so definitely done quite a bit of practice around here. And as you can see, it's raining in this qualifying session, but it's only intermediate conditions for the time being, and it's expected to be a full wet race, and I definitely felt like I had the perfect setup around here. As you can see, I'm currently increasing the wings for when it's a full wet race to hopefully have quite a bit of downforce in these conditions. But heading into this race, the aim was to just try and score points after finishing 11th in round 1 after quite a bit of bad luck, and I was just hoping for a race with no bad luck really and seeing what I could do. But China's not a bad track for me. I quite like the track, but I don't like it as much as tracks like Silverstone and Spa and Suzuka, but I definitely prefer it to the likes of Melbourne, which we had obviously for round 1. But heading out on track, and you can see moving on to my first time lap at the moment, heading down the back straight towards the hairpin, and I fueled the car up quite a bit just so I could do more than one lap. And obviously heading through the hairpin now, and J Thorne's put the first time up on the board, so we're going to see if we can beat that. As now heading towards the final corner, you can see I've turned subtitles on from the engineer for this race just because I can't really hear him for some reason, and I've turned up the sound to maximum. But you can see we go fastest with that, and it was only fastest out 2 for the moment, but I felt like it was a pretty good lap. But you can see I've gone again because I could clearly improve on the lap, so you can see already up in the delta, and running a full wet setup, so we're not going to be as quick in these conditions as we would usually be if we had a proper intermediate setup on. But definitely around here I feel very, very comfortable, and the stability of the car felt good. And you can see going purple once again, and sliding a bit there into the 90-degree right-hander. But Aresi set the fastest lap time for the moment as we get quite a bit of oversteer there on the exit of the 90-degree right-hander. But heading into the hairpin now, and you can see up on my delta, but I've messed up the hairpin quite badly and shifted down to first gear, which you definitely don't want to be doing on this game. So 4th it is, or actually it might be 3rd or 2nd maybe, because the leaderboard's messing up as it always seems to do at the moment. But there is an update coming, I believe this week, so hopefully these things will be sorted for round 3, which is Bahrain. So heading into the pits, and it was expected to get dry towards the end of the session, so the plan was to just go onto the dry tyres and head out with about 3 minutes remaining, and hopefully be the last car across the line and see if we can get the best track conditions to possibly set a good time to put me quite high up on the grid. But my current position is not too bad, but a lot of people decide to stay out on the intermediate tyres and just put in lap after lap, and they didn't actually plan on going in for dries. But I felt dries would be the best option, like right towards the end of the session. So you can see back in my pit box for the moment and waiting to be able to change my tyres to dries. But yeah, I also changed the force feedback on my wheel. I increased it slightly for this race because I didn't feel it was high enough. But you can see there it's going to definitely dry out, and we've got 4 minutes 38 seconds remaining. So changing my tyres to dries now, preparing to go back out on track. Super soft it's going to be. Still raining for the moment, but it's getting less and less as Syntec's already retired from the session, so that's not good news for him. But heading out on track, and I felt this was the perfect time to go out because we were going to be one of the last, if not the last people across the line, so we're going to have the best track conditions. And you can see some of the people are coming in with intermediate tyres, and they've really not judged that too well, because I don't think they're going to be able to get out of the pits in time with 2 minutes remaining to set a lap time on the dries. So, and there you can see DRS is enabled, so that pretty much means it's dry conditions now. So we may have judged this to perfection. So still in P3 for the moment, so definitely good signs, but I feel we can do better than that, and I'm not sure whether it's P2 again because the leaderboard messing up. But you can see we've now dropped down to P7 and now P8 because people in the intermediate tyres are starting to improve, obviously, as it gets drier. But I think there was only a couple of us, I think about 6 of us out on track on the dry tyres. So starting my lap now, heading into turn 1, taking it quite cautiously because we don't really want to mess up this lap time, because we're going to gain probably over 5 seconds in these conditions at the moment compared to what we were doing on the intermediate tyres. And you can see round turn 1 and 2 everything's looking quite good so far, and the lap probably looks quite slow, but for these conditions you just need to drive smooth. And you can see purple in sector 1, so I was getting pretty excited at this moment because I thought we might be on for maybe a top 3, maybe even higher on the grid. And compared to starting 13th in Australia round 1, that's definitely going to increase my chances of a good result, and especially with the wet weather conditions, which, as you guys, many of you will know, that I love the wet conditions on all F1 games I've played, because I just seem to be able to do really well in those conditions, probably better than I do in the dry quite easily. As you can see, still purple at the end of sector 2, so heading around the chicane now. I want to be going out as wide here as possible without touching the curb and getting good traction, short shifting up the gears. As B Colt sets the fastest lap, he's obviously on the dries, but he set his lap quite early, so he hasn't got as good of track conditions as us, so opening DRS as early as he can, down the back straight and braking at the 150 metre board in these conditions, clipping the apex nicely of the hairpin. You want to get good traction out of here, short shifting up in these conditions, and only one more corner to go. You can see how much we are up on our previous time on the Delta. You can see Big C is in front of us, opening the DRS as early as he can, and across the line we go P1, and that is the qualifying over. So we are going to be on pole position for the first time in AOR in all leagues. That includes the Reserves League, the F2 League from last season, and actually including socials as well. I haven't actually ever been on pole in AOR, but to take pole in my second AOR Tier 1 race is absolutely amazing. I couldn't believe it at this stage, and I just was saying to myself now that just keep calm and see what you can do in these conditions, and hopefully we can be on for a good result. And you can see it's full wet conditions, and it actually looks like it's going to go to intermediates towards the end of the race, but you can see I did change my wings to 6.6, but for some reason there's 6.5 on there. I don't know why that is, but only 30 seconds to go until the race starts, and yeah, I was just trying to focus as much as possible, forgetting about the fact that that was my first ever AOR pole, and just going to try and not bottle it and hopefully get a good result here. So getting into the race start now, we have 3 lights, 4 lights, 5 lights, and it's lights out and away we go. We didn't want too high revs because else you get too much wheel spin, but already going to cover off Beast has in second place, and heading into turn 1 we're just going to hold the inside line for the moment, and it is P1 for the moment, just trying to keep it as calm as possible, not letting anyone through. And I realised at this stage I've just got to try and get away from the group behind, try and set out quite a big gap so that hopefully I can have an unassailable lead for them and possibly try and take a win, which would be incredible in our second ever AOR race. I know many of you would have seen my lap. Obviously I uploaded it because it was a pole lap and my first AOR pole. I had to upload the lap because it's just, yeah, I couldn't really believe it. But Beast has actually made a bit of contact with the Resi into the hairpin, so Beast has is actually holding up the season 13 champion at the moment, so I just knew we just got to get away at the moment, and you can see the gap we're already building up. And I love these conditions, and with this setup the car just felt so stable, and I felt I had so much confidence in these conditions to just pull away and hopefully grab a race win. You can see the gap already is pretty massive, so just got to keep doing what we're doing. I was trying not to think about the prospect of winning in my second race in AOR Tier 1, something that I didn't think I'd be doing this season. I thought at the most today I was going to try and achieve a top 5 in the dry, but to take pole, I felt like even in the dry, taking pole, we could have fought for the win. And in these conditions we're just pulling away at the moment, and we've got the biggest gap in the field compared to like anyone else, to any other driver. You can see our gap is pretty massive already, so we've done what we needed to do. We just need to keep this up over the next few laps to hopefully build up a big enough lead where they're going to struggle to catch me in the rest of the race. And we're also going to focus on saving the extreme wet tyres so that they will last to the point where it goes to intermediate, so we don't have to make a 2-stop instead of a 1-stop. And if the conditions were to stay extreme wets, then a 0-stop is pretty much impossible. But yeah, excuse me, the best option was to do a 1-stop if it was to stay extreme wets, but we're going to try and make these tyres last to the point where it gets to intermediate tyres. But heading towards the end of lap 2, our gap is still extending to Beast has behind it, who has actually been overtaken by Aresi and RC Alonso as well. So heading around the final corner towards the line, let's see what the time is, and it's going to be a fast lap obviously because we're the first one across the line on lap 2, but no one has been able to beat it at the moment, so the gap is still extending, and just keeping it in standard for the moment. We don't want to use too much fuel in case anyone tries to attack us towards the end of the race. But we were driving really well at this stage, and I was just trying to stay as focused as possible without thinking about the prospect of saying I couldn't win in AOR Tier 1, which I thought like that was a target for not even this season. It would be a target for probably next season or maybe even the season after. But another fastest lap at the end of lap 3, and the gap is, I think I said, over 3 seconds, so we are leading over 3 seconds to Aresi and RC Alonso, who also have a gap behind them to, I believe, Beast has, and then a couple of the other, I think Jim Nova Tank maybe, but he had quite a bad start and dropped down to outside the top 10, I believe. But now heading towards the end of lap 4, is it going to be another fastest lap? And across the line it isn't, but the pace is still good, as we are on the talking to the engineer at the moment about a weather report just to see when it's going to go to intermediate conditions, and just managing the tyres and managing the fuel and trying to manage the gap, trying to extend it to as much as possible, because I knew there's going to be some fast guys, but I definitely felt like my pace in these conditions was probably the quickest out on, well, it clearly is the quickest out on track, to be leading by well over 3 seconds now, as yeah, our pace is pretty consistent as well. That's also very important, to be consistent in this league in no matter what conditions it is. But moving on to lap 9, and the gap has extended even more, and I was getting really confident at this stage, as Jamie has set the fastest lap of the race, and I wasn't too worried about setting the fastest lap or anything like that. I was just focusing on getting to the end of the race and hopefully taking a win, an unbelievable win. I'm pretty sure no one would have expected me to win this race, because after where I finished in round 1, 11th place, and also not really being able to compete with them in terms of pace around there. But I feel at tracks that I like, the target is to get hopefully consistent podiums in this league, and hopefully we can fight for a good finish in the championship. As you can see, the gap is, yeah, absolutely massive to the car behind you. There's a bit of a gap to Alonso, and then a bit more of a gap to the 2 cars after that. So we're looking really good at this stage, and you can see once again talking to the engineer about the weather conditions, and yeah, just still saving the tyres for the time being. I'm looking forward to the new update, because especially for spectator mode, it's going to be pretty insane. But hopefully they can sort out the many online glitches, and hopefully increase just the general connection of the game, because there's quite a bit of lag at the moment on multiplayer. But you can see onto lap 13, my tyre wear is actually looking quite good for this stage of the race, and just got to keep doing what we're doing. You can see it in Rich at the moment, still extending the gap. We got an absolutely massive lead, and I just knew at this stage I can win this, and unless something goes drastically wrong in the pit stops or anything like that, it's going to be hard for anyone else to beat me at this stage, because halfway through the race at the end of this lap, and I just got to stay focused, don't crash, as we actually set a personal best lap of the race, because the conditions were definitely improving, and obviously the tyres are quite worn, but to set a fastest lap with worn tyres obviously means that we're getting closer and closer to the intermediate stage now, so we don't want to be pitting for another set of extreme wets, and still managing the gap. And obviously my team want me to pit at this stage, but I'm not going to be doing that. And yeah, the confidence level at this moment is so high, and I couldn't really believe it myself that we've been able to just pull away from pole position and have quicker pace than anyone else. I knew my pace in these conditions was good, but I didn't think it would be this good, because I've been able to dominate F2 races and Reserves League races in these conditions before, but I didn't think I'd be able to do it in F1 as well. But it's definitely almost time to be pitting for intermediate tyres now. And Jim Nova Tank's actually made his way up to P3, so good drive from him, considering he dropped out of the top 10, I think out of the top 3 right now. His pace was better than Aresi's, and I knew probably my closest threat would be him, but I believe he had a penalty, so that definitely took away some of the pressure. But the gap is over 5 seconds and going a bit wide into the hairpin right now, but that was the only really mistake I made. I was just always hitting the apexes, always being able to set consistent lap times, and still continuing for another lap. not time to pit yet, but I think it's probably going to be either this lap or the next lap. And you can see we're still putting in personal best laps of the race, so the pace is still there in these, well, with these tyres, so we're just going to stick with them for the time being. But you can see, looking at the mini-map, quite a few people are coming in at the moment for intermediate tyres, so I knew it's probably best to just follow what they do, don't take any risks, and pit probably at the end of this lap. So you can see Beast has left the session, so this is just his ghost car driving around right now as we go through it, and setting a personal best first sector of the race. So the pace is still good on these tyres, but it's just best to follow what everyone else does and not make any unnecessary risks. As you can see, Jamie there set the fastest lap once again. His fastest lap times were pretty good and there was no point really chasing them. I was like, when I realised how good this race is going, I was going to aim for the Grand Slam, pole position, fastest lap, led every lap, and race win hopefully. But you can see into the pits now, changing onto intermediate tyres, and hopefully we won't be held up by the Ferrari crew because Aresi's coming in and we are easily still out in front of him before he even gets into his pit box. Is now heading down the pit lane, and we're still going to be in the lead even though we pitted, so we are leading every single lap at the moment onto lap 19. And I knew now we've changed onto intermediate tyres, all I've got to do is just manage the gap and hold on to the lead from here, and we will take victory. And honestly, I could not believe it really, because I said to the people streaming this after the race, I'll leave a link down in the description below to HRL Cavi's channel, because he's going to be streaming the rest of the season after PS Luton rules is bad connection, but those two are commentating. And yeah, I said to them at the end of the race that the aim really was to just get points today, and the fact that we're dominating this race really was a massive shock to me, and probably to quite a few other people as well. But it's actually not really been an exciting race for me, it's just been driving at the front. But the fact that we've done it is, as I said, a massive shock. But setting the fastest lap of the race now in these conditions, so yeah, we got the fastest lap for the moment here on lap 27, but that would complete the Grand Slam. But I've just got to wait and see if anyone beats that, and they haven't done for the time being, as Jim Novo Tank is now up into P2, so he's overtaken Aresi. But as I said, he's got a penalty, so he's probably going to fall behind him again. And I'm not sure who was in P4, I believe it was RC Alonso. But if we win this, this is really going to put us quite high up in the standings, and yeah, let's see what we can do throughout the rest of the season. Just got to stay consistent, just don't want to make any stupid errors, and hopefully we'll be in for a good result this season. And yeah, I'm commentating on this today, which is Wednesday, and 3 days later from when it actually happened, and I still just can't believe it really, and it hasn't really sunk in that I've been able to do this. And in these remaining 1.5 laps, we just got to keep doing what we're doing as we go purple there in the second sector. So hopefully no one's going to beat my fastest lap and we can take a Grand Slam here today. But I just got to keep it on the road in this last lap, and I believe we're staying on board from here to the end. As now crossing the line, we actually set another fastest lap, and yeah, that's going to surely complete the Grand Slam unless anyone's going to beat it. As now onto the last lap, we're staying on board from here to the end, and I was actually surprised. I know many of the people watching probably thought I should just keep it on the road in this last lap, but I actually was going for another fast lap just to try and get that Grand Slam, because I knew someone probably going to try and beat it as well. As you can see, going purple there in sector 1 here on the last lap, and the conditions are really improving. The rain is getting less and less, but just a slight step of oversteer on the exit, and I realised, just don't throw this away else you look like an absolute idiot. But you can see Shelley has set the fastest lap of the race by quite a distance, so I knew at that stage fastest lap's definitely not going to happen, and just got to focus on keeping it on the road in these final remaining corners. Obviously the back straights still to negotiate, but what a race it has been, and I can't believe just being on pole was a massive shock. My reaction to being on pole was probably quite funny well, no one would have seen me obviously because I'm just sitting here in my conservatory, but I was punching the air after taking pole, and then I realised I just got to focus on seeing what we can do in the race, but we dominated this race from start to finish, led every lap. Hamp set the fastest lap, but that doesn't matter. And heading towards the hairpin for the final time, braking at the 150 metre board. We don't need to make any mistakes in these final few corners. And you can see weaving now, realising that we've done it. We're going to take victory in race 2 of my AOR F1 season, and I can't really believe it. Weaving across the line to take victory in AOR PS4 Tier 1. What a race, what a drive, and it's definitely good signs for the rest of the season. Amazing, absolutely amazing. That puts us into P3 in the championship, and yeah, Bahrain up next, a track I kind of like but not too much, and then Russia round 4, which I absolutely hate, but it's a 20 round season, I believe, and we've definitely got many opportunities to hopefully take more wins and more podiums, and hopefully to be in the fight for the championship would be the absolute goal in my first season of AOR F1. But taking victory, and yeah, like when I eventually went on Twitter and told people I'd won, many people couldn't believe it really. I spoke to my brother after the race, and his reaction was hilarious to me winning. Like, he thought I was joking, but to dominate an F1 race, especially after the last race being not really competitive at all. I was a bit competitive in the first stint, but in the second stint didn't really have the pace. But to dominate this race easily, to take the race win, is absolutely amazing. So we've won from Resi, then RC Alonso, then Nervo Tank. Jake LFC is in 5th from Ali K, then Jay Thorne, then H Racing Green in 8th, Syntech in 9th, and Big C in 10th. But hope you guys have enjoyed. Leave a like if you have, subscribe to the channel if you're new. Let me know your thoughts in the comment section below, and I will see you for Bahrain. Goodbye.